friend. By the way, we're calling him Michael. So me and Michael started talking in the middle of my senior year in high school. I met him at a friend's party, and he seemed pretty cool. He was very affectionate. He would take me out all the time. He introduced me to his family. He said he loved me within the first week. He wanted all of my time, and he seemed so perfect. Until suddenly, he started to get very controlling. He never wanted me to go out anywhere. He didn't like the clothes that I wear. He didn't like any of my friends. He made me feel guilty whenever I tried to do something for myself. After months of dealing with this controlling behavior, I wanted to leave the relationship. He got mad at me. He was threatening to hurt me and himself if I left. I told him I was done. The next day, like any old regular day, I go to school and I come back home. But when I came back home, I open up my door and I see Michael sitting on my couch with a taser. I'll be back for part 2. This is part 2 story time of my crazy stalker ex-boyfriend. So like I said before, I get home and Michael is sitting on my couch with a taser. I ask him, "What are you doing here? And how did you get in?" He's like, "Your mom let me in. I told her you asked for help for homework." I yell and call for my mom, and he's like, "Oh, she left. She said she was going to the grocery store real quick." I turn around and try to leave out the house. He runs and shuts the door. And he's like, "Oh, baby, please don't go. Listen, I heard you earlier, and I'm sorry for being so controlling. I just love you so much, and I don't want anything to happen to you." I asked him, "Why did you pop up, and why did you bring a taser?" He said, "I just wanted to surprise you." And I'm like, "For what?" He goes into his pocket and pulls out a ring saying he wanted to get engaged, trying to hand me a ring that looked like he got out of a gumball machine. I laugh at him, and he pushes me against the door. It gets real scary after this. Y'all let me know if y'all want a part 3. This is part 3 story time of my crazy stalker ex-boyfriend. So like I said before, he popped up at my house with a taser. He told me he wanted to get engaged, and basically if I didn't say yes, he was going to hurt me. So for the time being, I pretended like everything was okay, and I told him yes, even though the idea of it disgusted me. He told me he wanted to go on a getaway trip and that I should pack my bags. I was like, "I have school tomorrow." And he said, "You can miss 1 day of school for your man." I told him no, and he grabbed my arm, telling me to go get my stuff. I went upstairs immediately. And when I got to my room, I tried to call the cops, and I guess he overheard me because he busted into my room, starting to fight me. I don't know how, but we ended up in the hallway, and he fell down the stairs. He became unconscious, and at that moment, I ran out of the house, and I called the cops again, but about an intruder. He ended up waking back up and was arrested, but that wasn't just it. A couple years later, he came around stalking me at school, my job, even my friends and family. This story time is how I caught my uncle feeling on my cousin, in other terms, his daughter. So when I was 11, my cousin was throwing a party, then afterwards a sleepover. By the way, we're calling her Adrian, and she was turning 13. So the day of the party, me and my other sister were dropped off by my dad, and we were dropped off very early, maybe 5 hours before the party, and that's because he had to go to work, and my uncle didn't mind taking us all together to the party. Plus, we got to help them set up for the party. When we arrived, we went to Adrian's room, and she got her hair done. It looked so good. When we were talking to her, she just seemed so sad. And you know, when you're younger, you can tell when things are off. She seemed bratty, and she would say that she hated her mom and her dad. To me, I'm like, why? She had the perfect life. Fast forward, she throws the party, and when it's all over, we go back to her house for the slumber party. We ate snacks, played games, watched movies till we fell asleep. I'm a light sleeper, and when everyone was asleep, my uncle came in the living room, tapped on Adrian's shoulder, and told her she gotta go to sleep in her bed tonight. Let me know if I should. This is part 2 of how I caught my uncle touching on my cousin, in other terms, his daughter. So early before, I told you guys everyone went to sleep. We were all asleep in the living room floor in front of the TV, and my uncle tapped on Adrian, telling her that she needed to sleep in her bed tonight. I'm a light sleeper, and I was woke the whole time. Adrian was still asleep, so my uncle picked her up and took her to her room. I was confused on why she had to go to sleep in her room because everyone was asleep downstairs. So 15 minutes passed. I'm still waiting there bored. I don't know what came to me, but I was just curious to see if Adrian was up. I mean, she might have been because I would have woke up if I was switched to a new room. I don't know. I just went up. When I got upstairs, I opened the door. Adrian was asleep, but she was completely naked, and my uncle was sitting right next to her, touching on her. I'm out of time. Let me know if I should make a part 3. This is part 3 of how I caught my uncle touching on my cousin, in other terms, his daughter. Like I said, I couldn't sleep, so I went upstairs to see if Adrian was up. When I opened up the door, Adrian was asleep, but she was naked, and my uncle was touching on her. I got scared and was about to run downstairs, but he ran after me, covered up my mouth, and sat me back down in the room. I started crying, and he said if I didn't shut up, he was going to beat me, so I shut right up. In the midst of it all, when he was standing up, I didn't notice before, but he had on no pants. I started sniffling, and the noise I was making had woke Adrian up. She looked at me, then looked at herself and saw that she had on no clothes. She jumped back and immediately wrapped herself up in a blanket. I started crying again, and my uncle said, "If you don't shut up, girl, I'm going to smack you." Then Adrian yelled at him and said, "Don't hurt her." And immediately he popped her and said, "What I tell you about talking back?" And from there, Adrian just sat there frozen, touching her face, and I shut right up. This story time is about how my boyfriend exposed my nudes to everyone at school. By the way, we're calling him Keith. So I've been with my boyfriend Keith for 4 months. He seemed pretty cool and chill and very outgoing. He played basketball and was very popular in school. So when he started talking to me, I felt very special. But as time went by, he wasn't the guy who I thought he was. He was pretty self-entitled, cocky, and it got annoying. He expected everything to be handed to him. Anyway, throughout the relationship, he'd always ask for nudes, but I always tell him no because I'm not that type of girl to send any guy nudes. He'd always get mad at me and say couples are supposed to do that type of stuff, but I didn't give in. I'd always take pictures of myself because I liked my body, but I would never send them to anyone. One day, Keith comes over to my house. We chilled for a little bit, and then my mom had called me. And then when I had came back, I saw him on my phone. When I snatched my phone from him, he sent the pictures that I took of myself and sent them to his phone. It get really reckless after this. This is part 2 of how my boyfriend exposed my nudes to everyone in school. So after Keith snuck into my phone and sent my nudes to himself, I got mad at him and told him to delete them. He tries to justify why he should keep them, but I say no because they were private. So then he shows me he's deleting them. After that, I kicked him out of my house for invading my privacy. Next day, I get ready for school. I text my boyfriend good morning as usual, but he didn't respond, which I thought was weird. When I get to school, everyone is staring at me. One of the basketball players at my school came up to me and said, "You're wild." I was like, "What?" When I get to class, one of the girls sitting in front of the class said, "Girl, you're bold," and I'm still confused. When I sat down at my seat and I opened up my phone, I went through Snapchat, watching everyone's stories, and I saw my nudes on one of Keith's friend's story. After this, it gets terrible. This is part 3 of how my boyfriend exposed my nudes to everyone at school. So after I saw that Keith sent my nudes to one of his friends exposed my nudes on Snapchat. I got upset. When lunchtime hit, I came into the lunchroom and everyone was staring at me. One of my best friends came up to me and asked me if I posted my nudes online. And I told her no and explained what Keith probably did. That lunchtime hit and we went around searching for him, but he wasn't there. I didn't know what to do, but my friends tried to convince me to go to the counselor, but I was embarrassed and I didn't want anyone to know about them or for them to tell my parents. I tried texting Keith on why did he do that, why did he send those people my pictures, but he just blocked me. I wasn't even sad about it no more, I just got upset. So I called my older brother about it and I told him what Keith did. And he said he'd be at my school at the end of the day and that he'll handle the whole situation. So school ends and everyone is leaving out. Me and my best friend walk out together to meet up with my brother. When I get outside, all I see is my brother and his friends jumping Keith. It gets crazy after this. Let me know if you guys want a part 4. This is part 4 of how my boyfriend exposed my nudes to everyone in school. Like I said earlier, I was supposed to be meeting up with my brother after school, but I saw him and his friends jumping my boyfriend Keith. Everyone was crowded around him, and you can tell that Keith was getting it bad. His lip was busted, 2 black eyes, hands were bleeding, and his clothes were ripped up, and he had bruises on his legs and arms. And all his friends backed up, and the one who posted the nudes wasn't there. By the time I reached down to the crowd, the cops came, and I'm pretty sure it was probably because the school called. And I was trying to stop my brother and pull him off of Keith, but him and his friends just kept going at him. When the cops came storming in, they all hopped out of their cars. They screamed at everyone, telling everyone to back up. By the time they reached the center, they arrested my brother and his friends, and they had to get an ambulance for Keith. My brother tried to escape, but they tased him and he fell to the ground. At this point, it gets really sad. To be honest, I don't even think y'all actually want to know what happened after that, but let me know down below. This is part 5 of how my boyfriend exposed my news to everyone in school. So after the fight broke up, the cops were called and they arrested my brother and his friends, but Keith had to get an ambulance. Afterwards, I went home and my friends came with me. At this point, I had to tell my parents. They were really disappointed, but they weren't hard on me. They ended up going to my school, talked to my counselors and all the teachers about it, which was very embarrassing for me. They brought in one of the students, who was Keith's friend, that actually posted the pictures. Some other stuff went down, but we were able to press charges. As for my brother, my parents bailed him out. But Keith tried pressing charges against my brother, but since I was already pressing charges against him for exposing my pictures, he ended up having to drop the charges because it was too much going on. Some other stuff went down in between, but it's too much to explain. But at the end of it all, I won the case. Keith and his friends ended up having to leave the school, and of course I broke up with Keith, but my news will forever circle around the internet.